Hi, welcome to Learn New channel. So today we are going to discuss about the topic is called is SQL is mandatory for Power BI or not. So SQL Server, I can say based on my previous experience, SQL Server is not mandatory for Power BI because if you can see in Power BI, Power BI will be having lot many connections. So the connections in the sense data sources. There are several options to connect data sources. So data sources might be Excel, it might be AWS, it might be SAP, it might be SQL Server, it might be Oracle. So there is a chance to get connected from Power BI desktop to these many sources. So there will be lot many sources are available. So there itself you can assume that SQL is one of the data source, not for the complete mandatory for Power BI. So why there? Many of the people, many of you people are thinking about SQL is mandatory for Power BI because SQL Server, SQL Server and Power BI both are from Microsoft. And so when SQL Server is mandatory, so SQL Server is mandatory when you are going to work with MSBI. So whenever you are trying to work with MSBI, SQL is mandatory because SQL Server, whenever you purchase SQL Server license, so you'll get all this. So this package, MSBI package, will comes along with SQL Server. So this package comes with SSIS, SSRS, SSAS tool. So that's where this SQL Server is mandatory. So here without SQL you can't, because you might use SQL Server queries here, you might use SQL Server queries reporting services, or in analysis services you can use DAX, MDX and all. So because this MSBI Microsoft Business Intelligence is a part of SQL Server package, that's where it's required. But come to the Power BI and MSBI both are different tools. So many of the people are thought that Power BI is updated version of this MSBI or SSRS like that. Both are having different functionalities, both are having different tools. That's where this Power BI and MSBI are both different basically. So for Power BI, SQL Server doesn't at all required. So doesn't at all required. It's not at all mandatory. So take an example. So if you are selected, or if you are working for one company where their data sources are SAP, AWS, like AWS Redshift or AWS Athena. So they are having this data sources only, just assume. So in your Power BI desktop, you open Power BI desktop and get data. So there you can choose SAP HANA. If you are using they are using database SAP HANA, SAP HANA. If they are using SAP BW, they can use SAP BW. Or also whatever based on this these data sources. So there is no SQL used for that particular project. Then it's not required, right? So this required only SAP HANA and AWS. So that's where that SQL Server is not mandatory. It's not important, or it's not it's not mandatory for Power BI to learn. If you would like to learn Power BI, you can learn Power BI with any of the data sources. It might be Excel or SQL or whatever. But once you fetch data from data source, that's it. You can create a model and all. It's a different thing, because so the data source will be considered whenever trying to get connection and provide our authentication methods. Authentication methods might be different. So I'll talk about these authentication methods in the next video or upcoming videos. So this is how. So you don't worry about SQL is mandatory. You don't need SQL server for your Power BI learning scope. So if you are worrying, you skip that SQL server and you try to learn only Power BI, and you can give your answer. So many of the companies may ask SQL server because if they maintain SQL server, but all companies doesn't store their data into SQL server. So that's where my conclusion is that SQL server is not mandatory for Power BI, and MSBI also is not mandatory. It's, Power BI is completely different. You can try with only Power BI jobs. So there will be lot many opportunities for only Power BI other than this SQL server or MSBI. If you would like to learn for trying for a job or looking for a job change, you can try only on Power BI. That's it for this session. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.